Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will be getting started right at 8:30. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for United Way's The Way Forward. We will begin promptly at 8:30.
When a working family who has struggled to put food on the table now has confidence where their next meal is coming from, their situation changes. When a veteran no longer wonders where she and her daughter will be sleeping next week because she secured meaningful work, the future changes for her. When a young boy enters kindergarten on the first day, excited and prepared to succeed in school, the world changes for him, and truly for us all. The issues facing so many of our most vulnerable neighbors haven't changed much over the years. Food insecurity, fear of homelessness, barriers to educational and employment opportunities that often fall along lines of race, gender, and ability. But now, coming out of this year of crisis, United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania has refocused our efforts on what we do best: meet basic needs, move families and individuals toward financial stability, and build for success in school and life. United Way brings together our entire community: companies, nonprofit agencies, area leaders, volunteers, and donors like you, to tackle the big issues today and whatever challenges tomorrow brings. Yes, our world continues to change. We need people like you to make sure it's a change for the better. Make your gift to United Way's Impact Fund and be the change maker your community needs today.
Good morning, everyone. What a great video. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Rob DeMichei. I'm the chairman of the board of the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania. You know, this past year has been one of incredible change, and one that has stressed the fabric of our society and left our most vulnerable neighbors even more exposed. With that as a background, we're here to talk about how United Way is evolving and stepping up to meet the challenges of tomorrow while continuing to address the everyday needs of today. We've taken the learnings from the past year and what we've learned from the pandemic and used them to sharpen our focus. The video talks about making change in people's lives. And for us to make change in people's lives, we've got to embrace change ourselves. And so that's what today's about. We're going to talk today about a framework, a strategic framework that lays out our guiding principles moving this organization forward. One of our core values has always been transparency and engaging our partners and stakeholders as part of that process. And so really that's what this morning is all about. So we're joined by around 300 of you, and we welcome you to this process. We're stronger when we listen and when we engage, and we seek out different and diverse voices in this community. United Way continues to operate best when we collaborate and we talk to our partners. In that spirit, we're going to be taking your questions today. So you can enter them into the chat box, and we'll be addressing as many of them as we can in the time that we have allotted. The success of the United Way in Southwestern Pennsylvania is a result of a long-standing relationship with public and private leaders, with corporations, and of course with our donors. It's built on interaction and it's built on engagement. We're going to continue to focus on the most challenging issues of this region, the most complex problems of this region, and really where there's clear community need. And most of all, United Way is driven to providing opportunity for all and helping overcome inequities of race, gender, and ability. So how was this strategic framework developed? As you can imagine, during the past year with the pandemic raging, our staff was engaged and had their hands full with day-to-day operations and with meeting basic needs. So we brought in some help, and that help came in the form of PwC. Justin Kauffman's here today. He is the managing partner of PwC here in Pittsburgh, but we had resources from not only Pittsburgh, but also from across the country, some of the best experts from PwC to assist us with this strategic plan. There was a significant time commitment that was provided by PwC. There were resources that were provided, and they did interviews, they did research. We had tons of data around community impact and also data around our donor engagement. And really, it was important that we had an outside set of eyes looking at what we're doing, pointing out what we're doing well, and also where we have opportunities for improvement and for better engagement. This is really a great illustration of how a corporate partner can help a nonprofit. And the work of PwC, you're going to hear me say this several times, we couldn't be more thankful for the contributions of Justin and the team from PwC. It was really significant work. And Justin will be joining us later and actually will be moderating our Q&A. Before I introduce Justin, though, I would like to bring in Bobbi Geer. I am honored to share the stage with Bobbi. Bobbi is our CEO and president of the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania. I know it may seem like Bobbi has been at the helm for 20 years. It's actually been just a bit over 2 years. Usually a new leader has a couple of miles of on-ramp just to get acclimated to the community and to the new position. And it seems like Bobbi's runway was about 2 feet. She was thrust into the middle of a raging pandemic when the community's needs were the greatest. And I can't tell you what a great response and great leadership Bobbi provided to this organization and to this community during the pandemic. So we're so thankful to have her at the helm. But really, this strategic plan is a result of Bobbi's vision for the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania on how we move forward and how we succeed in this community. And it's a culmination of an incredible amount of work, both from our internal staff, but also listening to our stakeholders, our partner agencies, our board members, and our donors, and then also leveraging the great work of PwC. So with that, I'd like to hand things over to our exceptional president and CEO, Bobbi Geer. Bobbi?
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today for the program. I want to circle back to something that Rob said about making real change for people requires us to embrace that change ourselves. And that really has always been part of the DNA of your local United Way. We're constantly evolving and innovating to meet the changing needs in our community and to be prepared for what's next. And certainly this past year and a half has been a stress test for all of us, and especially for United Way. The pandemic pushed us to our limits and beyond in resources and capacity, but it also really forced us to focus and rally our network like never before. And while the strategic plan isn't necessarily a response to the pandemic, but it really has been informed by, and we have learned from the pandemic, the economic upheaval, the issues of racial inequity and social justice that we've been reckoning with over the last year or so. And the pandemic really showed us what we could do when we marshaled our resources toward addressing these big problems. And we really learned very well that the problems don't occur in silos, and they don't occur in silos in our various communities across the region, our 5-county region that we serve. And what is really special about United Way is that we stand at the intersection of the corporate community, the nonprofit partners that we work with, public organizations and institutions, volunteers and donors and community leaders. And that's really the basis of our superpower, that we're able to bring people together to have a line of sight on these issues and really bring the best resources to solving problems. And this strategic framework is meant to supercharge this superpower. And we call it a framework because it's not the traditional strategic plan where you have strategy, objective, tactic, and we're not walking you through a PowerPoint reveal of that this morning. There are really 3 core elements to this, and it's guided by a set of guiding principles that you'll hear us refer to this morning. But there are 3 things that I want you to know about this plan, this framework. It's that we're changing the way that we focus and talk about our impact work. And I'll say more about that in a minute, but it's about focusing on the problems and not necessarily on the populations so that we can address problems more inclusively. We're highlighting the critical importance of the impact work that we do in the community and the Impact Fund. We would not have been able to accomplish what we have over the last 18 months without the Impact Fund, without that flexibility to be able to give our partners the ability to pivot and meet current needs. And then the third piece of it is about using data and new strategies to engage more stakeholders in the work. When I say focus our impact work, I could give you a little quiz on the video, but it's really about meeting basic needs, moving people to financial stability, and building success in school and life. Those three things, we're really trying to clarify our mission and purpose so that our stakeholders better understand the work that we're doing. If we're trying to solve problems that are so vast and so complicated and so wide ranging, sometimes people don't understand what it is that we're working on and trying to solve. And that's what the strategic framework is helping us to address. And it also helps us provide more flexibility to pivot as needs change. And gosh, they sure changed over this past year or so. And because of this focus and commitment to the way that we're approaching and solving problems, we hope that it will engage a broader audience of donors and stakeholders going forward. And speaking of going forward, I am now going to turn over the mic to Justin Kaufman, who Rob already introduced as the managing partner of PwC Pittsburgh. And he and his team have been instrumental in getting us to this point. And so, Justin, I want to send it over to you to get us going on some questions and discussion.
Thank you, Bobbi. Thank you, Rob, and the whole United Way team. Definitely truly excited for today's discussion. I worked on everything as a backup strategy, including asking my wife and my children and my dog to leave the house for the next 45 minutes. Yet I've had technology problems all morning. So we will get through this, and I'm truly excited. And PwC, for folks that don't know us, we're one of the largest accounting, tax, and consulting firms in the world. We're the largest professional services provider here in Pittsburgh. More than 1/3 of our business is around consulting and solving kind of the world's and society's largest problems and challenges. So truly excited to be working with United Way. We work with United Way and many other organizations across here in the US. And we've spent many, many months working with Bobbi and Rob and the whole team. I know time is precious, so I want to thank all of the stakeholders for being on today's call: donors, agency partners, volunteers. So let's get to it. We're going to have a little rapid round of Q&A. I am not trying out for the Jeopardy competition, but I do want to help this dialogue along. All right, Bobbi, you're up first. What's the big deal with a new strategic plan?
Thanks, Justin. I think first and foremost, we took a really critical look at who we are and what our strengths of United Way happen to be. And I mentioned that we also started with some guiding principles. And those include really making sure that we're bringing diverse voices to the table to address and define what problems we're trying to solve, to work collaboratively, to really tackle complex issues that really require that kind of collaboration. One of my favorite of the guiding principles is to know when to lead, when to follow, and when to get out of the way. So to make decisions about what can we really make the most difference and impact on. And that's what really led us to the focus of moving from talking about populations to more inclusively addressing the problems that we're trying to solve and improve in the community: meeting basic needs, moving to financial stability, building success in school and life. And that's really, I think, what's at the core. Those are the pillars of the plan moving forward, and they're really informed by these guiding principles. But at the same time, making these pivots is really something that United Way has done over the course of time. We are a change agent, so we're always ready to change and move and be ready to address problems in the community. But it's the key pillars here that I'm excited about, that focus in impact.
Thanks, Bobbi. And we'll get some questions along the way, and I'm going to kind of hold those till the end to make sure that if we don't address them, then we'll definitely address them. So thanks for folks that are sending them in. Rob, you and I have known each other quite a long time now, more than a decade, and I would say that you've been an executive in the local here market for quite some time. Why a strategic plan in the middle of a pandemic? Not to mention you obviously have a healthcare background.
Well, it was actually the perfect time, Justin. I think with all of our industries and everything that we're involved with, we all know that living through a pandemic identified for us just different ways of doing things. And we certainly saw where the critical needs were. Our 211 line provides us with the ability to see those needs real time. And so I think this helped us to focus our work, to understand where the true needs were, the community. And we actually learned that the needs weren't siloed by kind of age group for seniors or for children or for families. The needs cut across all of these different populations. So it was really more about addressing issues and not individual populations. So basic needs, whether it be food security or utilities or housing, those things matter to everybody. So we really wanted to be focused on outcomes and addressing the needs as opposed to specific populations. And I think we also realized the need to be agile and to adjust. And as I said earlier, the greatest risk to an organization is the status quo. And so I'd tell you that the pandemic may have been the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania's finest hour, but that isn't a reason to stay on the status quo. We always want to be looking to the future and where we need to be. So I think it was the perfect time to learn from the pandemic and to get better from it.
Without a doubt, a catalyst for change, and I would say the perfect storm, and it's still in front of us. So, a better time is obviously now. Rob, this is also for you, process. I know process is very important to you, working with you in the past and now with United Way. How do we undertake, give the folks that are listening, how we thought about the process to make sure that we didn't miss anything, we didn't miss any stakeholders, and we were comprehensive.
Well, we've always had a very robust strategic planning process at the United Way. And so every 3 years, we would prepare a strategic plan and then go and execute on that plan. And I think what we learned, or what we wanted to do, we wanted to take a different approach. We wanted to have external views, not just an internal function or process. So the work that Justin, that you and PwC did for us was critical because it gave us an external lens into what we were doing, a different set of eyes, and really a different group of skill sets that maybe we didn't have all the competencies in, especially around big data, some of the analytics that you were able to do. We have a ton of data around community engagement and also around donor engagement. So the analytics you were able to provide were very important to see things maybe that we weren't seeing internally, but it was also done with all of our stakeholders involved. So we were engaged with donors, with partner agencies, with board members, with employees. This was a plan that was vetted, that was reviewed, we received input on, we refined it. And I think it gave us, from a process standpoint, something that we're very excited about moving forward. And really the culmination, even with today, and getting feedback and interacting with the community is important so that we have this comprehensive view and a united view moving forward.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I would also say that what I loved about the process was there was significant debate amongst board members, amongst stakeholders. And if we didn't get to that point, then we probably all weren't doing our role. Bobbi, this is for you specifically. What specific differences do you expect it to make in the way the United Way serves the community? And by the way, this actually addresses a couple of the questions that I have seen coming in. So this is going to be one that's very important for folks to hear.
Yeah. So my crisp answer is it's going to make us better. It will just make us better. It will make us faster. It will make us more focused. And that is, I think, all the better for everyone. I think that one of the things that we often struggle with is that if we don't understand the scope of the problem, or what is it that we're trying to solve, it's harder to solve. And so let's be more clear up front that we're looking at focusing on meeting basic needs, moving to financial stability, building success in school and life. And we're looking to build equitable opportunity for everyone in our community. So where are the most critical pain points that we can apply that superpower to improve that issue in the community? So I would say that it's hit the fast lane, that rather than being stuck in process and not necessarily understanding the scope of the problem, or perhaps being engaged in some things that partners are off and running with and doing better than, and don't need us necessarily for that, then let's focus on another problem. So I think what everyone should be seeing is just a faster, more effective, more agile United Way going forward.
Yeah, and I would say way more integrated the way we go about problems and challenges.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that I love change, and sometimes people say I love it too much. But I do think that you need to change to grow. And we have to obviously be careful to balance, right? You don't want to do too much change, but you also don't want to stay static, as Rob was alluding to earlier. Rob, what changes do you see for us in the United Way, in the community, and what stays the same?
So I think some important things don't change, right? The mission doesn't change, but we're still going to mobilize kind of the caring power of this community to address some of the most complex human service issues that we have. So that's not going to change. We're going to still serve the same populations that we've always served, but we're going to do it in a more effective way, and we're not going to operate in silos. We're still going to make decisions on a local basis. You know, this again is the consolidation of not only United Way of Allegheny County, but also Westmoreland, Butler, Fayette. So we're coming together to serve the region, but we're still making decisions on a local level with local input, with local community leaders. So none of that changes. It's really just framing our impact in the terms of the problems that we solve. And so we talked about meeting basic needs. Like, these are things that are really important to this community. Moving toward financial stability, building success in school and life. These are problems, again, that reach across multiple populations. So those are the things that we're going to be laser focused on. And we really want to ramp up our ability to engage our existing stakeholders and our future stakeholders. The world is changing. We need to have better digital tools. We need to think about fundraising differently. We're still going to focus on corporations and a corporate campaign, but we have multiple areas of other donors that we need to engage as well. So it's an organization that's running really well. And if you look across this country and you look at the United Ways, we are one of the most successful in this region. So as I said, this may be our finest hour, but we're not going to rest on that. We need to get even better, and we need to create a future that makes sure that we're relevant 10 years, 20 years, 30 years into the future.
All right, Bobbi, my favorite topic with you, we talked about innovation, right? And I pressed upon you and the team to say, I don't want to see the United Way of 2005. I want to see the United Way of 2025. And we had a lot of good discussion with you and many of the stakeholders. What role do you see innovation playing for the United Way as we move forward?
Innovation has always played a really important role in this United Way. It will continue to accelerate. Just for an example, 211 took over double the contacts and calls over this past year. And we continue to look at, technological innovations on how we can, deal with that kind of volume and still best serve people in the community. How do we, innovate around how our staff and team help people through the 211 service? We're looking at innovations in terms of digital ways and platforms to increase giving. Certainly, we've all experienced an extreme disruption in the ways that we work in our workplaces. And United Way has been known for its workplace campaign. So we have really had to pivot hard with how do we engage people through the traditional workplace campaign. So we'll be continuing that work specific to this strategic framework. We're looking at how do we engage people outside of the workplace, utilizing that data and innovative technologies to be able to cast a wider net, to engage more stakeholders in this really critical work of United Way. So I will say that that will always and continue to be a key element of the work that we do. And also excited to say that our United Way has an innovation fund. It's called the United Way Forward Fund, that we're able to competitively review proposals from our team to be able to develop these tools and resources. So innovation is a word that comes up every day in our organization.
Excellent. And I'll continue to stay on top of this one for sure. This is more for Rob. How will this plan really impact our effectiveness as United Way serving the community? And Rob, this is also, as I see questions coming in from the chat, I'm getting them on my phone. I'm getting them from multiple locations. So Rob, maybe you can hit this one because I think it's going to cover a number of our questions.
Sure. I think by being more focused and more clear, we can engage better with people on a much deeper basis. And that engagement means that we're engaging with donors more deeply. And when we have more donors and more dollars, more resources, we can have a greater impact with those resources on the lives that we want to impact. So I think it's really increasing prioritization. It's increasing commitment. We want to really address inequity that we have in our community. So it's always been a big concern of ours. But especially coming out of the pandemic, we really have to double down on our commitment on issues, again, like inequity across race, gender, and ability. And so, and I think, again, one of the other superpowers that we have is this 211 line, and it gives us a direct link into the community to understand what those issues are. And it's fluid and they change. And this gives us the ability to always have our finger on the pulse of the community and what's important and what needs engaged.
Bobbi, any comments on that one? I mean, we have a lot of questions coming in. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm looking at several of the questions in the chat as well. And, I wanted to kind of pull a thread here, whether or not and how this impacts agency partners as well. And I think that's a key issue to address. And that, our process has always been that we're focused on a competitive process to address the needs in the community. That will continue with our agency partners. Some partners are partners with us for years and years. Some come in and out as well. So we are not discontinuing any particular line of impact focus. So even though we're talking about the work a little bit differently and not saying United for Seniors necessarily, we're still committed to addressing the needs of seniors in our community, but we're doing it in a more inclusive fashion. So if there is an agency partner concerned on the call today, I want to assure you that we are still committed to serving those individuals in the community, the populations that we addressed. But we just really learned that we were trying to solve those problems in silos, both in our internal and external structures. And we want to do that in a more inclusive fashion.
Yeah, and we'll absolutely have those discussions too, right? Outside of this conversation today, with anybody who might be, impacted by a different change or whatnot, right? So that's to me, transparency and communication are vital to the success of what United Way is doing. Any additional thoughts on just stakeholder in general?
Sure. Yeah. Bobbi? I think that we've learned a lot of lessons about how to engage stakeholders, especially in a world that we can't be in person. Through programs like this, we've done other programs throughout the course of the year. Particularly, some of you may have participated in the Question Before Us. It's a new series of ours that we lift up the programs and bring in experts and talk about what issues are impacting the community and some of the solutions that we can put in place. So we'll continue with that series. The Community Pulse Report is a new data report that we put out every couple of months that really highlight what's happening in real time in the community. So these are two key new ways that we're engaging stakeholders, but we'll continue to do these and other innovative strategies to bring people together so that you better understand the problems that are occurring in the community and how we can address those together.
And Justin, I think, and Bobbi, I think it's important that for people to understand that we're not operating in a vacuum. We don't think we ever have, but certainly going forward, we want to be responsive to the community. So I talked about the 211 line, but this is also a board of directors, a staff that is interacting with partner agencies, with government leaders. We want to be the conveners. We know we have other great nonprofits, but United Way, we're the conveners. We bring everyone together and we address these really tough, complex issues. I'd say that's not going to change it, but I want everyone to be aware of that. That's always been our role. And I think we're doubling down on that commitment to being responsive and listening and being good partners.
And one of my observations, and I took on the role of managing partner here in Pittsburgh about 3 years ago, is that there are a lot of great organizations in Pittsburgh all trying to do the right thing. And I think all of us as a community can work closer together. And that was definitely a hot topic. And a good one that we talked about with Bobbi and Rob and the team, and everybody embraced that for sure. Okay, so now is I want everybody to get the smiles going for this one. What do we, actually we'll start with Bobbi, then we'll go to Rob. What are you excited for what are you most excited about the future? Pandemic aside, by the way, and not some of the other challenges, but what are you most excited about?
It sounds a little maybe discordant to say that I'm excited about this, but this is really what I'm excited about, that we have doubled down on our commitment to creating a more equitable community for everyone across race, gender, and ability. And I think that is, to me, the most gratifying thing that I'm excited about going forward, is tackling those issues of inequity in our community. And just to give you an example, Justin, I was looking at a report earlier this week that we had over the course of the last year, just responding to COVID, supported 158 organizations around supporting meeting emergency basic needs, vaccine access, food insecurity. 158 organizations, almost $12 million. And out of those 158, 130 of them were new. They were new to us. They were small community grassroots organizations, many of them serving and led by people of color, really addressing needs and inequities at the hyper-local community level. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the regional work that we're doing. The ways that we responded this past year and a half have been, really comprehensive across our 5-county footprint. We've demonstrated that we can do that and do that effectively. So it's this ability to, really double down and create an equitable opportunity and engage more stakeholders in so doing.
Yeah, well said. Rob?
Yeah, I guess one of the things, if there's anything any good that came out of the pandemic, I think there was a new awareness from people. Maybe people had forgotten about some of the great work that we were doing at the United Way, but such a light was put upon what we were doing and what I call these basic needs and the struggles of families and the struggles that our neighbors were having because of this pandemic. It really exposed many of the inequities and maybe many of the problems. And the bright spot in that is that's what we've always done really, really well. So I think it's helped us to express our value proposition to say, you know what, we're on this, we do this really well, we're reacting very quickly and we're making a difference. And so I think what it's done, Justin, if there's any bright spot, it's let people know that we're an effective organization, we're addressing these basic needs, we're helping families, we're going to address inequities. And so, we're here and we're available. And this 211 line, again, is our direct link to the community and to the needs of the community. So again, I think it's helped to reemphasize the importance of United Way and the work that's performed by United Way. And to me, that's one of the few bright spots that's come out of the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think what we've seen is really truly a catalyst for change. And I'd say that the time is now more than ever. So, I'm truly excited for all of that. What I'd like to do, I'm looking at the clock, we're about 10 minutes to go. And some great questions coming in. And what I'd like to also make sure is that the team, the United Way team, who's standing close by, they were capturing a lot of these questions. If we don't get to them, I would like to see us somehow follow up, and we'll figure that out offline, because I think that no question should go unanswered. And that's my strong point of view on that. So one thing I saw early on, which I really want to hit, Bobbi, is what are our top priority, and we're talking broad, we're talking, a bit of change, we're talking about where our focus is. Top priorities for the next 12 months.
Yeah. So clearly, we're putting a lot of things in place as we roll out this new framework, really shifting our language and really working to get this implemented in our workplace campaigns as well. But we will be, not making immediate, we're not putting out new RFPs, for our agency partners. Again, we're not putting out new RFPs this fall to immediately throw things into a state of flux. That will be thoughtfully moving forward to implement the new framework. I will say that we're not out of this pandemic yet. The emergency basic needs continue to really dominate the work that we're doing to make sure that people are, can stay in their homes, are not evicted from their homes. We're heading into winter. We'll have issues of making sure that the utilities are on as well. So I think that is going to be key for us over the next 12 months to continue working on pandemic response, and then really integrating the new framework into our work going forward.
Okay, good. And I would say that I saw one question I'd like to answer myself, which is, will PwC share a report? I will be clear to say that that's not how I work. Meaning, as PwC, we work with in this case it was the United Way and the stakeholders. We work with them, so we weren't off in a room putting together a magical report and saying, here's the PwC report. Very good question. It was done with the team, so we absolutely, what I like to say, broke some glass, and we had some hard discussions, and Bobbi and I had some good, healthy debate. but it's really a United Way strategic plan that was fed into, and we helped with a lot of the underlying data and taking some of our views and perspectives from other cities, other United Ways, what works well, what doesn't, as well as other organizations that we work with. So I wanted to make sure I addressed that question. This is one. Oh, go ahead, Bobbi.
And if I could just add to that, Justin, that we were intentional about not doing a PowerPoint presentation this morning. We actually have that. we have the PowerPoint
endless slides.
And we're happy to go dig deeper with anybody who wants to take a closer look. And I think I saw it in a couple of instances asking for more information or asking for more detail. And we're happy to take a deeper dive. Today's program, I think, was meant to be a conversation to introduce this into the community, and we're happy to follow up.
And anybody that knows me, I'm more than happy to have a conversation. I like those conversations. In fact, one of my favorite questions, and I'm not saying that they're not all great questions, but I do want us to hit this one. And I touched on a little bit earlier. There is so much duplication in the region. And I agree with that. And duplication, I'm not sure I would use that word, but I would say that there's a lot of organizations that are trying to do the right thing. And it just happens to be that a lot of organizations are doing some of the same things. How can United Way help to pull those initiatives together to better focus efforts? That's a great question, Deborah.
Yeah, I think, and we see this and have seen a lot of it over the last year and a half as well, is that, looking at what's the issue, what's the problem, who's working on it, and bringing them together to figure out who can do what pieces of that. And that's absolutely a United Way leadership role that we expect to continue to play. Just taking food security as an example, it has been a tremendous issue for us. The food bank does wonderful work. Our food banks across the region do wonderful work. And we were able to supplement that by engaging other partners in the community over the last year and a half. And that's the kind of role that we'll continue to play and look at, how can we make sure that everyone is contributing and moving the ball down the court, but not duplicating and tripping over one another.
Thank you, Bobbi. This is one that I've seen a couple of questions, so I'm sort of going to summarize. With a new approach and I would say an evolving approach. I wouldn't say it's like we stopped one and went to another. I think, Bob, we've talked about it a few times. How can we be certain that certain populations that were being served prior to this discussion, and as we start to make sure that we're not moving away from certain populations, right? So how do we think through that a little bit and make sure that nobody is left behind? It's somewhat of a cliche.
Yeah, I think what we learned, Justin, through this last year is that we were working in our silos trying to address how issues were impacting older adults, how they were impacting people with disabilities, how they were impacting kids, how they were impacting families and veterans. The list is kind of long.
Sure.
And in what we found out it's like, wow, if we put our heads together and recognize that all of these issues are intersecting, we could solve them faster and more inclusively, instead of setting people aside in specific groups. And so we know that these issues impact a broad segment of our community, and we are committed to continuing to serve everyone in the community who are impacted by them. So they will absolutely, and we still have, the experts on our team and our volunteer teams to have their eye on making sure we're serving those populations.
All right, I have two final questions, both of which have come to me through the chat here, through a text, and I even received one email on this. And I'm going to flip the way I asked this question. How will the new plan affect agency partners going forward? That seems, obviously, as you can imagine, a number of our folks on the call this morning. Can you give some light on that? And if there's any concerns or follow-ups, how will we kind of get to that broad audience?
Yeah. Our agency partners, first, I have to give them a big shout out because they have been doing fantastic work. And it's just been amazing to see them at work. I hope they would say too that, especially during the pandemic, that we have provided a lot more flexibility, a lot more ability to extend the work that we do with one another, and more resources. And that's what they should expect going forward, that we want to be able to work swiftly and completely to solve issues in the community. It's always been a process by which United Way is known for wanting to achieve outcomes in the community, have accountability to donors. That will continue, but we hope there would be less process and more outcomes, would be what I would say in response to that.
Okay. And again, we're getting a lot of great questions. So this is being recorded. The United Way team will capture the names of people that submitted it, and we will get back to you. And if we don't get back to you within the next few days, reach out to me directly and I'll help chase it down. I can promise you that. I do want to, this was a quick one, and I know this came up. Linda, I see that one quickly. Website talks about it. We're going to be updating the website. That's a big assumption. Bobbi, can you confirm?
It absolutely confirmed. Okay. I think that is coming within the next couple of weeks. And as we move into campaign season, you'll see the change in language as well. All
right, this is I think we should wrap up on this one, Bobbi. And this is my question that I always ask our teams at PwC. I always ask our clients this question. And I think it's one that we talk about, and then we don't necessarily have enough rigor to follow up on and making sure that we're addressing it. How are we going to measure success?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I talked about this being a framework and that it wasn't a traditional, here's the 20-page plan with strategies and objectives. What we're currently working on right now, our senior team is building operational plans underneath those key pillars that we've been talking about all morning that will give us our key performance indicators. So we will have measurable plans in place very shortly on this. But obviously, too, the intent of this is to provide more service in the community, see change in the community. We'll continue to work with our partner agencies and measuring those outcomes. That will be consistent with what we've done in the past as well.
And Justin, just to chime in from a board perspective, the last thing we want is to create a strategic plan and then just set it aside. So we have board commitment, and a lot of the input was around ongoing monitoring of progress. So this is real, this is serious. The board will be reviewing progress multiple times during the year. Again, we don't want to be too intrusive. We want the staff to have the ability to go out and actually execute, but we'll be monitoring this probably a couple of times a year to see progress. We view this as critical to our future success in executing on this plan. So it is something that will be reviewed at a board level to keep and continue to monitor our progress.
And I would say that one of my largest takeaways from being involved with this initiative is the passion and the dedication that Bobbi and her team have. Doesn't mean that we always agreed as we went through this process on everything, but we always got to the right answer, what I feel for the United Way and the community and the stakeholders. And again, I would say passion and dedication to do the right thing. So I'm truly excited for this. So thank you both, Bobbi and Rob. Bobbi, do you want to kind of wrap this up as we come to a close here?
Sure. And I've been trying to monitor some of the questions in the chat box as well. We will remind you of the key pillars: meeting basic needs, moving to financial stability, building for success in school and life. We will also be sending a follow-up communication after this program today that will give you a little bit more information, and wanted to let you know that we're happy to have the PowerPoint presentation with any group as well. So, but thank you, Justin, and PwC and your team for all the work that's led to putting this framework together. Greatly appreciate it. It's been an enormous investment of time and energy over the last 9 months to get us to this point. And I want to thank Rob for your leadership as board chair. Rob's tenure began during the pandemic, and I really owe him my personal gratitude for his partnership and his leadership. And Rob and I have only seen one another in person, I think, one time in the last year and a half. So it's been pretty incredible what we've been able to do. I took on this role a little over 2 years ago, and when I came into it, I had a vision and some ideas about how we could really move forward. And I think some of those ideas have really been borne out in this strategic framework, and the pandemic has really tested them along the way and given proof to some of this philosophy that if we move outside of our silos and focus our work and give it more clarity and purpose in the community, that we should be able to attract more stakeholders into the work as well, with the ultimate goal of creating a more equitable community for everyone who lives in Southwestern Pennsylvania. across our region. So thank you to, I know that we had over 200 people join us this morning for being a part of this conversation, and knowing that this conversation will continue in this new chapter for United Way, that change is here. And now I ask you to work with us to implement that change, to advocate for that change in the community, and to help us push it forward and really make a difference in our community. So on behalf of Justin and Rob and the entire United Way organization, our board of directors, I thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day and a good end to summer. And may we all emerge out of this pandemic stronger and better together. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you all.
Thank you.